broke the gas station windows and the lights flickered and I grabbed the counter. The fluorescence steadied and I exhaled. I was 16 and pulling a solo shift because the other guy called in sick. The storm had been building for an hour, and every time the thunder cracked, the lights blinked and the dread punched through me. I paced past the fire extinguisher on the wall for the 10th time. A box of zip ties sat on the shelf under the counter next to the scissors. I counted the register twice to keep busy and slid the drawer shut, and every light on the block died at the same time. The register died and the coolers stopped, and I grabbed the counter because the dark was instant and total. I yanked out my phone and the screen said, "Citywide power outage." My boss had already texted, "Stay put, lock the doors." I locked the front door and paced behind the counter, and the security camera above the register blinked once and went dark with everything else. I texted my friend Nate because he always answered no matter what time it was. "Bro, the whole city just went dark. You seeing this?" No response. Nate was the kind of kid who texted back before you put your phone down. We shared a desk in shop class, and he chewed the inside of his cheek when he was thinking. Rain hammered the roof, and nothing else made a sound. Something banged against the side of the building, and I dove behind the counter with my heart hammering. Wind was rattling the propane cage outside. I shoved a toppled display back up with shaking hands and laughed at myself for jumping. A knock on the glass. I spun, and a woman was standing in the rain holding a sleeping toddler against her chest. She knocked again, and her face was desperate through the wet glass. I flipped the lock and pulled the door open. "Can I just get gas? My daughter's asleep and I'm almost on empty." The toddler's head was on her shoulder, and one tiny fist was clutching a stuffed elephant, and she was drooling onto her mom's shirt. Of course, pumps are down, but I can flip the manual override in the back. "Thank you so much. We've been driving for 40 minutes trying to find somewhere open. My husband's deployed and it's just me and her, and I've been going in circles in the dark." I handed her a paper towel, and she wiped the rain off the toddler's face, and the little girl scrunched her nose and squeezed the elephant tighter without waking up. She could sleep through a hurricane. She basically is. The woman laughed, and the relief of having another person loosened the knot in my chest. "I'm Caleb, Michelle, and this is Lily." I noticed a name tag safety pinned to the elephant's ear, Ellie, in wobbly marker. Michelle caught me squinting at it. She named it herself. Can't spell yet, but she got close. She bounced Lily and hummed something, and Lily's fist tightened on Ellie's trunk in her sleep, and Michelle kissed the top of her head. "We'll be home soon, baby." The gas station felt warmer and smaller with them in it, and the blackout didn't matter. I went to the back room to flip the manual pump switch. I could hear Michelle laughing at something Lily did in her sleep. The front door chimed behind me. I came back out and my stomach dropped through the floor. 3 men in ski masks and gloves inside the gas station. The biggest one already behind the counter. The second flipping the lock. The third 2 feet from Michelle. She yanked Lily against her chest, and the girl woke up whimpering, and Michelle's face went white, and everything warm about the last 10 minutes died. "Nobody moves." He grabbed my collar and I swung at him, and he caught my wrist and slammed it down and had a zip tie cranked around both wrists before I could swing the other. I kicked and he pinned my legs and dragged me to the counter and zip-tied my hands to the metal shelf underneath. I yanked immediately, and the shelf rattled, and he kicked me in the ribs so hard something cracked, and I curled around the pain but kept pulling. He crouched and ripped my name tag off. "Caleb, I know your name. When this is over, you forget everything." He pointed at Michelle. "That baby stops crying or we have a problem." Lily was wailing. Michelle pressed the girl's face against her shoulder and rocked, and the terror on her face gutted me so completely. I pulled at the zip tie until my skin tore and blood ran down both forearms and dripped off my elbows. Michelle saw it and her face crumpled and she mouthed, "Stop," but I shook my head and kept pulling. The big one ripped the cash drawer out and bills scattered. "300? That's it?" He swept the drawer off the counter and it crashed into the chips. "We hit the houses. No alarms. No cameras. This is home base." He pulled a list of addresses from his pocket. The small one crouched in front of Lily, his head tilted, almost gentle. "How old?" Michelle's voice shook. 18 months. The gentleness vanished when he straightened up. "Keep her quiet." 2 of them went out into the dark. The small one stayed, jittery, pacing. His mask was crooked, and I could see his jaw, and something about it tugged at the back of my brain. The way he chewed the inside of his cheek. I'd seen someone do that every day in shop class. The second they left, I started pulling at the shelf. The screws were loose in the old wood. I braced my feet and pulled, and my cracked ribs screamed, and I bit down until I tasted blood and the screws ripped free. I flattened behind the counter. The security camera had a tiny green light. Battery backup. Still recording. I grabbed the scissors and sawed through the zip tie, and it snapped and blood was running down both wrists, and relief surged so hard through me my head spun. The fire extinguisher. Red metal. 10 feet. He turned from the window and walked toward Michelle. "Your car still running?" She nodded. "Keys." She pulled back. please, her car seat's in there. He grabbed for the keys, and she twisted, and Lily screamed, and the fury was so instant and blinding my body moved before my brain caught up. I ripped the extinguisher off the wall and swung at the back of his legs, and he went down hard. He rolled and kicked me in the stomach, and I doubled over but held on. I swung again, and his shoulder crunched, and he crashed into the chip display, and the whole unit toppled, and cans and glass exploded everywhere. He grabbed a bottle and hurled it at my head, and I ducked, and it shattered against the wall. I charged and swung low and caught his knee, and he buckled. Ellie was on the floor between us, staring up with button eyes. I slammed the extinguisher into his chest, and he let go. Michelle, run! Your car! She sprinted for the door with Lily screaming. I shoved through the back room door and slammed it and threw my weight against it, and he hit it from the other side so hard my feet slid. I jammed the mop handle through the door handle and burst out the back exit. Michelle's van was at the pump. She was turning the key and the engine clicked dead. She'd been running it for 40 minutes. Dead battery. The panic was choking me. I sprinted to the hood and slammed my palms on it. Pop it! She was shaking so hard she couldn't find the latch. Lily was screaming in the back. Michelle, the hood! She found it, and I ripped the cables and dried the terminals with my shirt, and inside the store the mop handle cracked. He was almost through. Try now! Click. Nothing. I slammed the battery housing and corrosion crumbled off the terminal. Again! Click. The engine coughed and died. The back door was splintering. I grabbed both terminals and squeezed them against the posts with my bare hands. Now! The engine caught and roared, and I yanked my hands free and slammed the hood. Drive! Don't stop! What about drive? She tore out, and the taillights vanished. I sprinted to the front and hauled the door shut with my bloody hands slipping and grabbed the padlock from the propane cage, and it took 3 tries to snap it through. He was locked inside, pounding on the glass. The back door splintered open behind me. He was getting out, headlights coming fast. The other two. The van pulled in, and the big one jumped out. What happened? He got out. Woman's gone. The big one scanned the dark. I was behind the air pump 15 feet away. Find him. I ran. Vaulted the fence, and my ribs screamed, and I stumbled through a backyard. Fence rattling behind me. Boots on grass. I cut through a yard, and a motion light clicked on, and I was lit up, and I dove over the next fence and landed in a garden and kept running. I shoved through a hedge, and thorns ripped my arms, and came out on a pitch-black street and sprinted 3 blocks and ducked into an alley behind a dumpster. Flashlight beams at the end of the alley. Check over here. I pressed my face into my knees and pulled my feet in, and the beam swept past the dumpster 6 inches from my shoes. He's gone. Come on. We're losing time on the houses. Boots fading. They went back to robbing the neighborhood. I stayed behind the dumpster, shaking and crying from exhaustion. Then I heard screaming. Not from the gas station. From a house 2 streets over. A woman screaming, "Get out of my house," and glass breaking, and I could hear it cutting through the rain, and I knew exactly what was happening. They were inside someone's home. I should have stayed behind the dumpster. I should have waited for the sirens. But Michelle's face flashed through my head, and the sound of Lily crying, and I was terrified. But I shoved myself up and ran toward the screaming. A little yellow house with the front door kicked open. I crouched behind the porch railing and dialed 911 with shaking bloody fingers. 3 men robbing a house on Miller Street. Yellow house. Broken front door. There's a woman inside screaming. I hung up. Inside I could hear them tearing through cabinets, and the woman was sobbing. I grabbed a garden gnome off the porch next door and hurled it through the side window of the robber's van, and the alarm erupted. The big one came crashing through the front door, and I was already running. He saw me in the streetlight for half a second. It's the kid from the station. Both of them came after me. I sprinted down the alley, and the big one was fast for his size, and I could hear his breathing getting closer. I cut left and grabbed a recycling bin and threw it behind me, and plastic bottles exploded across the pavement, and he tripped and went down hard and cursed. I vaulted a chain link fence and dropped into a yard, and there was nowhere left to run, so I crawled under a deck and pressed myself flat against the dirt, and cobwebs stuck to my face, and something skittered across my hand, and I clamped my jaw shut to keep from screaming. Boots on the pavement above me, flashlight beams sweeping through the fence slats. The light crept along the edge of the deck 6 inches from my face. Check under there. We don't have time. That alarm's gonna bring every neighbor on the block. We go now. The van peeled out. I crawled out from under the deck and spit dirt out of my mouth and stumbled back to the yellow house. The old woman was standing in her doorway in a bathrobe, clutching a phone and shaking. "Are you okay?" They took my mother's jewelry box. It was the only thing I had left of her. Her voice broke, and I grabbed the porch railing because my legs were about to give out. "The police are on their way." I called them. She looked at my wrists. The gauze from the zip ties had soaked through, and blood was dripping off my fingers onto her welcome mat. "Oh, honey, you're bleeding everywhere." "I'm okay." "You are not okay. You're a child." She went inside and came back with a dish towel and wrapped it around my worst wrist and tied it tight, and her hands were gentle gentle and steady, even though she'd just been robbed. "What's your name?" "Caleb." "Caleb, why on earth did you run toward this house?" "Because I could hear you screaming." She pressed her hand against my cheek and her eyes filled up. I heard sirens getting closer, and I turned and ran back toward the gas station because the night wasn't over. The parking lot was dark and empty. The padlock was on the front door, but the back door was hanging off its hinges. I stepped through and glass crunched under my shoes. The store was trashed, chips and soda and broken glass and the cash drawer on the floor. I grabbed the fire extinguisher from where I'd dropped it. Then I heard breathing behind the ice freezer. I raised the extinguisher and crept toward the sound. The green glow of the security camera lit up a face, and I stumbled backward. Nate Mitchell. I'd known that jaw. I'd been staring at it all night through the crooked mask, and my brain had been screaming at me to recognize it, and I wouldn't let myself. 4th grade. He came to my birthday party, and we ate so much cake we both threw up. Shared headphones in study hall every single day for 2 years. He was holding his shoulder where I'd hit him with the extinguisher, and tears were running down his face. Nate, Caleb. A woman and a baby were in this store. A little girl with a stuffed elephant was screaming on the floor while you stood over her. He flinched at every word. I told them the station was closed. I told my brother, "Your brother kicked my ribs in. He's my brother." I couldn't say no. "You could have said no. You have my number. You sat next to me in study hall yesterday." "I know." He pressed his face into his hands. He said nobody gets hurt. Quick money. My brother got out of county 6 months ago, and he showed up at my house and said he had a plan, and I was going to help. You could have said no. You've met my brother. He was right. I had just met his brother, the man who cracked my rib and ripped a cash register apart with his bare hands. He moved into my room, took my bed, ate my food, told me I owed him because he didn't snitch on me for something I didn't even do. Nate wiped his face. "I'm not making excuses. I'm just telling you what happened." Headlights swept through the windows. The van was back. Nate's face went white. "They're back. My brother won't leave without me." He grabbed my arm. "If he finds you here, he's not letting you walk out." The flashlight cut through the broken back doorway. The big one ducked in, and he looked even bigger in the dark, and his boots crunched on glass. He was carrying a crowbar from the van. "Nate, let's go." Nate squeezed my arm. "Stay down." He stood up. "I'm here." The flashlight hit his face. "Where's the kid?" "Gone." He ran. The big one grabbed Nate by the collar and shoved him toward the back door. Nate stumbled and planted his feet. "Wait, we don't wait." I said wait. The big one swung the flashlight beam around the store, and it landed on me, crouched behind the aisle, and I could feel it on my face like a heat lamp. "He's still here?" He shoved Nate aside and came down the aisle with the crowbar raised, and he was twice my size, and the fury on his face was volcanic. "You locked my boy in. You let the woman go. You called the cops on us at that house." I raised the extinguisher. "That's not going to stop me." I squeezed the handle and sprayed him point blank, and he screamed and staggered, clawing at his eyes, and crashed into the cooler doors, and glass shattered. The second guy came through the back door. Nate stepped into the aisle between us. He spread his arms wide and planted his feet. "Enough!" The second guy stopped. Nate's brother was screaming and wiping his eyes. "Get out of my way!" "No! Nate, I swear to God, move! This is my friend." His voice cracked. "His mom drove me to school when mine wouldn't. She packed me lunch because nobody packed mine. I sat next to him every day for 2 years, and he never once made me feel like I was less than anyone." He was crying and shaking and half the size of his brother, and he didn't move. "I'm done. I did this because you told me to, and I watched a baby scream on a floor because of us, and I'm done." His brother lunged around him with the crowbar, and Nate grabbed his arm, and they crashed into the shelf, and cans rained down, and I swung the extinguisher and connected with the brother's back, and he dropped the crowbar and howled. The second guy bolted for the back door. Nate and his brother were on the ground, and Nate was holding his brother's arm with both hands, screaming, "Stop!" And I kicked the crowbar down the aisle and grabbed the front door key ring off the wall, and my bloody hands dropped it twice, and I yanked the padlock free and threw the door open. Red and blue flooding the parking lot. 3 cruisers, officers pouring in. 3 inside. They rushed past me and pulled all 3 out in handcuffs. The brother was still wiping his eyes and cursing. Nate came out last. He was bleeding from a cut above his eye, and his hands were cuffed behind him, and he was 17 years old. His face found mine across the parking lot, and he held my eyes, and neither of us blinked. The kid who stood between his brother and me with his arms spread was being loaded into a cruiser, and I pressed both hands over my face. The security camera, battery backup, green-tinted footage of the whole night. The officer played it on his laptop. 3 men entering, me on the floor, Michelle holding Lily, me breaking free, the extinguisher, and at the end, Nate stepping between his brother and me with his arms wide. "We have everything on camera, including that kid stepping in front of a crowbar for you." The paramedic wrapped my wrists in white gauze. "These are deep. You'll have scars." Michelle's minivan pulled into the lot. She got out, and Lily was asleep in the car seat with Ellie tucked under her her arm. Michelle crossed the parking lot and walked straight into me and held on shaking. You told me to run. You needed to run. She's okay. My baby's okay because of you. She brought Lily over and put her in my arms, and she weighed nothing and smelled like baby shampoo, and her tiny hand curled around my finger, and I choked up because this little girl was safe and had no idea what happened tonight. My mom showed up in her bathrobe, police scanner in the kitchen. She grabbed my face and saw the bandages and the bruise and pulled me in so hard my ribs screamed. You're done working nights. Mom, you're done. I buried my face in her shoulder because I was 16 and I'd fought 3 grown men twice and saved a woman from a house, and I wanted my mom, and she was here. The old woman from Miller Street gave a statement. She described the kid who threw a gnome through the van window, and the dispatcher confirmed my 911 call. He ran toward the screaming, she told the officer. Everyone else would have run away. Nate wrote me from county. 1 page. I stepped in front of my brother because you swung a fire extinguisher for a baby you didn't even know. I want to be the kind of person who does that. I'm not there yet, but I'm trying. I screenshot it and almost posted it to my Snapchat story, and then put my phone down because some things aren't for the internet. I read it twice. The register was replaced, but the dent in the counter from where his brother ripped the drawer out was still there. My first day shift, I found Ellie behind the shelf where she'd rolled during the fight. I picked her up and put her on the counter. Michelle came in a week later with Lily on her hip, and the little girl pointed